What if I told you that the internet, this thing that's so completely woven into our lives, almost didn't make it? That it was nearly strangled in its cradle by a massive wave of pure hype and greed? Well, that is the incredible story we are diving into right now.
And no, this isn't some sci-fi what-if scenario. This is the true story of a financial mania that completely wiped out trillions of dollars, crushed thousands of companies, and then, in a bizarre twist of fate, accidentally laid the groundwork for the world we live in today.
So to really get how it all went so wrong, we have to rewind. Let's go back to, say, 1995. The internet wasn't this silent, always-on utility like it is now. Oh no, it was an event. It announced its arrival with this symphony of screeches and buzzes from your dial-up modem. It was slow, it was clunky, but honestly, it felt like pure magic.
It was like this wild, unpredictable frontier. You'd wait 10 whole minutes for a single picture to load, pixel by painful pixel. But even with all the frustrations, there was this feeling, this buzz in the air, that this was the start of something absolutely huge. This was the future.
And of course, Wall Street, smelling the potential for just astronomical profits, went into a total frenzy. The floodgates just burst open, and billions upon billions of dollars poured into any company with a .com at the end of its name, no matter how ridiculous the idea was.
The logic, and I'm using that term very loosely here, was simple. If it's on the internet, it's got to be a gold mine. And this led to some truly bizarre investments. I mean, think of the silliest idea you can, like toiletseattracker.com, and you're not far from the truth. The absurdity? Well, that was the reality.
Okay, so now we've reached peak madness. This is the moment when all the normal rules of business, things like profits, solid plans, they were just tossed right out the window. It was all about hype, about growth, and about the new holy grail, scale.
The formula for getting a massive valuation was surprisingly simple, almost comical. You needed a vague, kind of terrible idea, a logo that looked like it was made in Microsoft Paint, and you just had to say a few key buzzwords like disruptive or first mover advantage, and boom, millions in fun.
Financial news, which used to be the home of sober analysis, basically became a hype machine for this new digital economy. You'd see analysts on TV breathlessly promoting companies that had no revenue, no product, and absolutely no clear path to ever making a profit. They were selling a dream, not a business.
And the valuations were just mind-boggling. A couple of people with an idea scribbled on a napkin could suddenly be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, on paper at least. A whole new generation of paper millionaires was born, literally, overnight.
I mean, the signs of a bubble were just everywhere. You had Pets.com, with its famous sock puppet mascot, becoming a household name while losing money on every single sale. You had Webvan, which burned through $1 billion before collapsing spectacularly. Companies with more venture capital than actual customers were buying Super Bowl ads. The offices became like daycares for billionaires, full of nap pods and ping pong tables. It was never about building a sustainable business. It was about burning through cash as fast as possible to get scale.
And the justification for all of this collective insanity? A simple four-word mantra that you heard in every boardroom and on every financial news show. This time, it's different. But as history loves to show us, it rarely is. The party was in full swing, for sure, but the music was about to stop. Abruptly. The very foundations of this new economy, built on nothing but hype and hope, were starting to crack. The great unraveling was about to begin. March 10, 2000, the NASDAQ stock market hits 5,048, a brand new all-time high. It felt like a coronation, the dawn of a new digital golden age. But it was the peak. The very last moment of euphoria right before the fall. And then, all of a sudden, the questions that had been so conveniently ignored for years started being asked again. Questions like, what's your business model? Do you have any actual customers? Hey, are you actually making any money? And for company after company, the answer was a resounding, deafening no. The result was a total bloodbath. All that confidence just evaporated, and it was replaced by pure panic. The NASDAQ plummeted 78% in just 2 years. This wasn't a little correction, it was a wipeout. $1.7 trillion of wealth, gone. Just vanished, as if it had never even existed.
The dream was dead. The media, which had been the biggest cheerleaders for the new economy, was now writing its obituary.
The dot-com boom was quickly and cynically rebranded as the dot-con.
And the carnage was just everywhere. More than half of all dot-coms went bust. Those lavish offices were abandoned. The stock options were suddenly worthless. The fear was so intense that enrollment in computer science programs at universities actually plummeted. The internet, once seen as the absolute future, was now completely toxic.
But amidst all that wreckage, a few companies did survive. See, they hadn't been built on hype. They were built on solid business fundamentals. They managed to weather the storm, and in the quiet aftermath of the crash, they began to build the future.
So what was the big difference between the winners and the losers? Well, the survivors weren't just selling dreams, they were solving real problems for real people. Take a company like Amazon. Their stock got hammered, down 95%, but they didn't panic. They just kept their heads down and kept building, focusing on their customers, on execution. It wasn't sexy, but it was a real business.
But here's the really unexpected silver lining of the entire crash. All that money that was just thrown at those dot-coms, it wasn't all wasted. It built the infrastructure, the fiber optic cables crisscrossing the country, the massive data centers. That stuff became the foundation for the next wave of innovation. It's like the skeleton of the modern internet was left behind, just waiting for new builders to come along.
And sure enough, by 2003, the fog started to clear. A whole new generation of companies, you might have heard of them, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, they started to emerge. They didn't throw lavish parties. They just built, quietly, on top of the infrastructure their predecessors left behind. And then, in 2007, the iPhone put the entire internet in our pockets, and the rebirth was complete.
So yeah, the internet was overhyped, it was misunderstood, and it was brought to the absolute brink of collapse. But it wasn't killed. In all that wreckage, a quieter, more focused, and ultimately, a much more powerful internet was born. It didn't die. It rebooted.
So what's the lesson here? It seems like every new, world-changing technology goes through this cycle of insane hype, a painful bust, and then a quiet rebuilding. It really makes you look at the tech landscape today and ask yourself, what's the current equivalent of Pets.com? And what's the next Amazon quietly being built in the background?